there is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So you have white balance, or do I need to help
I'm good
you?
with white balance.
All right.
I'm good with audio, and I am rolling.
All right. Well, Peter, welcome to Dallas.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I really appreciate your coming so that we can talk about Shall We Dance?
Yeah.
I love this movie.
Oh, good. Thank you. It was so heartening last night. The Dallas reaction has been huge. It's great. Yeah.
I love a movie that is character-driven,
Yes.
and when you walk out, you feel sort of uplifted
Yeah.
about life and the world. And it's highly entertaining, but there's some substance there too. So it worked for me beautifully.
Good. Thank you.
Now, I have to ask you, because I know you're from Blackpool, right? Blackpool, England.
Yeah.
And the World Championships of Ballroom Dancing,
That's right.
it's noted for that.
Yeah.
So, are you a ballroom dancer?
Well, it's a coincidence. It's a weird coincidence. It's not like how I got the job. I'd made films for Miramax before. It was part of our upbringing. We were sent to ballroom dance lessons age 12, and it was just there, part of the town. It was the mecca for ballroom and for comedians and variety shows, and it was part of our upbringing, yes.
And do young people still do that?
They do. They do. It's interesting because I've always found ballroom to be at once seductive, very seductive, and yet a little ridiculous. Do you know it is? And I think in the film I've probably played the ridiculous a little more than the Japanese movie, but it is extremely romantic as well and very graceful.
Richard Gere is getting to be like this generation's Fred Astaire.
I know.
After Chicago and
Yeah.
now after Shall We Dance.
Yes.
Did he stop to think about that before he accepted the role?
I think he loved the idea of dancing again. He's not a trained dancer, but he, in Chicago, kind of learnt just that tap routine. And in this, he had to start completely from scratch. It's a whole different discipline, a whole different sensibility, and he worked for 3 hours every day for 4 months, and then more than that every day while we were shooting. We would wrap at 9 o'clock some evenings, and he'd go do another 3 hours, with any of the teachers. He became obsessed with it. I said to him early on, Richard, you can never be too good in the dancing, in this role, because this man spends this amount of time, really, really committing to it. And then about a week before we started filming, I saw him rehearse and said, I think you're too good. What are we going to do,
Dumb it down.
Well, actually what we did was we realized that if we pulled all his stops out for the competition and just regraded his improvement carefully through the movie, we could make it work,
I was amazed to learn that there are 10 different kinds of ballroom dancing.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes, that could well be. It's funny because they call the waltz and the quick step, they call that ballroom, and then things like the cha-cha and the paso doble they call Latin. But it is all part of ballroom to anyone else. But there's many forms, yeah.
Richard Gere says the waltz was the hardest thing for him to
Yeah.
learn. Why would that be?
And Jennifer Lopez found the waltz the hardest. It's because to glide like that, to strike those poses and hold them, is an almost athletic demand. Jennifer, who is an incredibly fit girl, as you know, works out every day and a trained dancer, after 1 hour's waltz practice would ache the following morning in muscles she didn't know she had. It's a totally different discipline. So I know what Richard's saying, and also the slow waltz, which is very slow, requires more holding and more, it's like doing weights for a long time,
See, I've always perceived tango as the most difficult because I tried to learn it. And
Right.
I could never get my weight on the right foot at the right time.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe I didn't have a good teacher, or maybe I was a poor student, I don't know. But I always thought the tango would be the most difficult.
I think it's the most demanding, I think, in instant energy. It's kind of the sprint of the dances, and especially in the sequence in our film, you remember the tango lesson that Jennifer gives Richard late at night. It's kind of our love scene in the movie. And the great beauty of that is that you can be very explicit because it's dance. It's not lovemaking. You know, you're not going to be censored as you were if they were between the sheets. And yet the feeling is that you saw everything, and they were. It's quite hot. And the great thing about the tango is it's very expressive. It's like a language of itself. You know, there are certain moves that are a vocabulary, if you like. And what I always wanted to do with the film was I didn't want to go story, story, dance number, story, story, dance number. That not only would the film not stop in terms of going forwards during the dance, but actually the dance would further the story in a way we couldn't do with 5 pages of dialogue. So the tango lesson between Jennifer and Richard, there's 2 big shifts there. On her part, it's her becoming unblocked and letting go and trusting a man once again. And on his part, it's feeling the blood rush through his veins as they never have before and taking charge. You know, he becomes the man in that and throws her around, and it's the big breakthrough for him. You know, it's worth a lot of pages. You know.
What was going on in Jennifer's life at that time? Was she still with Ben Affleck or not?
She was. She was with Ben. But the press were all over them. I really felt for her. And then when Ben came to visit in Winnipeg, it was hard for her. I mean, I don't know how she put it all to one side, but she did.
Well, that was the reason I brought it up, was when you have a person like her who is so just besieged by the press and the paparazzi and all, how do you keep that from interfering with your work?
I think that's a really good question, and I'll be honest and say that when you cast someone like Jennifer, as a director, you worry about what's going to come on the floor. And you know, all I can say is that having spoken to Michael Apted in the weeks before I started filming, who's an old friend, and he said the same as everyone says, including me now, which is that she has so many lives, and the enterprise is big, but the woman who comes on the set is just a very, very focused actor who's more prepared and more concentrated than actually most. I mean, I would look around the set and think, I wish some of the others had prepared themselves as much as Jennifer. So it is remarkable.
And you just have to double the security, is that what you do?
Yeah. It was a big thing. You can imagine Winnipeg getting Richard Gere, Susan Sarandon, and Jennifer Lopez and Stanley Tucci all on the same day, you know. It was exciting for them.
I have never seen Stanley Tucci so funny. What a rip that is. It's just great. Was it difficult for him to achieve being funny and learning to dance all at the same time?
Yeah, I love Stanley as an actor, and he and I have known each other a long time, and we've been looking for something to do together. He's actually very worried about his performance in this film. You know, it's pretty extreme, and I think he's very worried. And I sent him a picture really early on from a ballroom dance book of a Latin dancer that I thought, I looked at it, I thought, God, you know, that's Link. And it was this smile, which was smile all you can, then double it, then add the number you first thought of. And it was this manic energy, which they have, some of them. And I think for he and I, it started there. And then I had a practice wig made, which was like a Fabio ridiculous thing that I just put on him one day early on in rehearsals and said, this might liberate you a bit, you know, like Samson. And he took off. It was almost like he couldn't do it without the wig, like the character, who eventually sheds that, you know. But the weird thing is, it's not really dancing. It's meaningless bravura and fake majesty, and it's all posturing. You know, the Paso Doble is all about posturing, and he really pulls it off. You know, it's the cell, isn't it, that works. You know.
I notice in the credits you do thank the Fred Astaire estate.
Yes.
And what did that entail? Because they're, I'm told, very difficult to deal with.
Very difficult. we had to deal very carefully with Mrs. Fred Astaire, who normally does not, allow the use of Mr. Astaire's films in new films, and just felt quite comfortable about this project because it's such a tribute to dance, And it's actually Harvey Weinstein. I wanted another clip, I think, from the same movie. Harvey loved this one from Bandwagon with Sid Charisse more, and I think he was right. I hate to say it, but I think he was right. Just the thought of Richard Gere mesmerized by Fred Astaire in the shop window, works. It's a real turning point.
When you were filming the dance sequences, Peter, would you film just a few seconds at a time and stop, or would some of the sequences be much longer? How did you do that?
I never cheat in this movie with the dancers at all. There's never doubling. It's never anyone else's feet or hands. It's always these guys, because this is a film about learning to dance. And in the same way as the Full Monty characters, all that matters is they believe they're the Chippendales for that one night. All that matters is our cast believe they're champions for one night, So it's a kind of warts and all. The mistakes are charming, them getting better progressively is charming. So I would always make sure, especially in the competition sequences, that it all happened in one. I didn't stop the dance. I rarely did what we call a pickup of one section of the dance. And I had multi-cameras, and the idea with the competition was to feel like we had just intruded upon a real event. In fact, it was a disused railway station in Winnipeg, it is amazing, the transformation. But no, they had rehearsed so hard and so well, this kind of boot camp for ballroom, as I used to call it. The product was there. I just had to stand back and tight camera, wide camera, but actually film it in its entirety.
And that really runs up the budget when you have multiple cameras, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a lavish production. It's on the whole, it was harder than I thought it would be. Much harder. I hadn't anticipated it would be this difficult.
And what was the budget?
I think it's top 40s, 40-something million. Kind of not bad. Not huge by today's standards.
Well, I would say it's all there and then some.
Oh, good. Thank you. Good.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Well, again, I thank you so much for coming.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I just can't wait to see what this film does, because I think it's going to be really hot and really catch on.
Good.
Good date movie for all ages. Nothing that's going to offend anybody,
Yeah.
So I just can't wait to see.
Oh, great. Good. I'm beginning to sigh. I'm beginning to relax, which is fun. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Sir, let me keep you right there for just a second. Bobbie, let me get an over-the-shoulder setup shot, and we'll move around for reverse questions.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, fine. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about here. No, okay. You directed Funny Bones.
I did.
And Ruta Lee is a very good friend of mine.
Oh, Ruta's fantastic.
Yeah, isn't she?
Yeah, she's great.
And you talk about somebody who is a hoot. She is a hoot.
I know. She still sends me the Thalians. That's right, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm going out for the theater.
You see, get to a crossroads several times in the day when most of us, because of the pressure we're under, would take the wrong fork. You see him check himself, back off, walk away. Several times a day, I'm aware of him guiding himself into a much more happy, comfortable existence. He really is in a good place.
Okay, Steve, we're ready. And if you would, Peter, just start to answer, and then I'll wave
Of
you
course,
off, because we have
Sure.
we have your
That's okay.
answer, your real answer. Okay. You come from ballroom dancing. Excuse me. You come from ballroom dancing country,
Yes.
Blackpool, England.
Yes.
Are you a ballroom dancer?
It was completely part of our culture, and we were sent.
That's good. Okay. Because Richard Gere did Chicago, we're starting to think of him as this generation's Fred Astaire.
I know. The thing about Chicago is that he learnt just one routine, just that.
Okay. Do you think that Richard Gere gave pause about accepting this because of too much dancing in his career?
No, I think Richard just wanted to make sure that it was worth remaking the Japanese and that we got the different slant, the different accent right, I think.
Okay, I'll skip to this one. Since Jennifer Lopez was being just haunted by the media at that time, did that interfere with the making of your film?
On the outside, peripherally, yes, but the woman that you get that comes on the set is just a very, very focused.
Stanley Tucci has to be funny, and he also has to learn to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And how did he do with both of those challenges?
He's someone I've always wanted to work with for a long time, and he jumped at the chance to play the part, yeah.
Let's see here. Richard Gere has said that the waltz was the most difficult thing for him. Why was that?
It's a real athletic demand that it makes on the body, because holding those postures and gliding so slowly is very strenuous.
I've always heard that the Fred Astaire estate is difficult to deal with, and yet you do have.
Do you want some water?
Oh, that's.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. I think I can get through it. I've always heard that the Fred Astaire estate is. Well, maybe I am going to have to.
Okay.
Mix this and.
Oh, is that what it is? I was sneezing like
Well,
crazy.
yeah, it's.
As
the
I
height
got
of
off the plane, I'm so pleased you told me this.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
good.
the height of the allergy season.
Oh, wow.
And mine manifests itself in kind of a postnasal drip that just gets my throat.
Right.
It's not, my throat isn't sore, it
Right.
just gets grabbed.
Tickle that never goes away.
Okay, where were we? The Fred Astaire estate.
Yes.
Okay. I've always heard the Fred Astaire estate is very difficult to deal with, and yet you were able to get this clip in your film. What did you go through?
We went through a difficult process. You know, Mrs. Fred Astaire does not normally approve, but really took kindly to our film and what it was saying about dance.
I didn't ask you then, but I will now.
Yes.
Did it involve a large payment?
Not so large. Actually, not so large. I think it's more about the quality of the work that she was interested in. It didn't seem to be about money.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Oh, and I didn't ask you that, but I can ask you now. We can B-roll it. Most of the time when people are dancing in films, they're not hearing the music. Did your dancers hear the music?
Yeah, I know what you mean. If they're talking and dancing, we have to play a thing called a thump track, which is just the beat, and we filter that out later. So it is difficult. It made it very technical. In the competition, though, everyone's hearing the music.
Okay, fine. I think they'll get it.